Protests are happening in China.
Begin, though, with two big stories that could threaten the fragile U.S. economy. Wall Street suffered very heavy losses yesterday after China's biggest public protest in decades shook up investors who were very worried about the disruption to global supply chains. And
it's also interesting because, like, dude, literally, okay, first of all, I'll give you my take before anything else. I think China's zero COVID policy, especially with new strains, is unimaginably difficult to continue. Okay? Straight up. Stop saying CIA. Calm the fuck down. The idea, especially when you don't have I've talked about this already. When you don't have a actual end, when you don't know when, if someone gets COVID in your fucking apartment block, or if someone gets COVID in the fucking factory line, when you don't know when that shutdown is going to end, that's not safe. From what I understand, China is ending its COVID zero policy in the new year, for the record. You can tell me if I'm wrong about this, but this is what I've heard from my Chinese relatives, at least, so it could totally be fake. But from what I understand, the COVID zero policies are going to be, even before these protests, the COVID zero policies were going to be ending, or at least the restrictions were going to be lowered next year. Yeah, relatives. Okay, CIA. Wait, what? Now, I find that to be conflicting because from what I understand and everything I read, it feels as though what do you call it? This is a big part of the Xi legacy. It's true they're planning to, but the local governments are dog shit at enforcing the zero COVID policy with maximum cruelty, especially in Xinjiang. Chatters when hogs protest COVID lockdowns. Lol, Chud's mad. Chatters when Chinese people protest COVID lockdowns. The Chinese people demand freedom. SOS China. Yeah, that I was going to mention that. Now, of course, this is, if you wanted a fucking zero COVID policy, this is what it looks like. This is a government-enforced zero COVID policy. And I think that they did a really good job originally in the beginning. And I think that now moving into the state of COVID and the way that COVID works now and the way that the rest of the world is treating COVID now, it's fucking virtually impossible. Sorry, I saw some chatters took the CIA joke seriously. Did you see the only people that have gotten COVID in China are vicious mommy blog vloggers? Wondering what you think about this? What? It's really people that are upset with the implementation and not the idea of zero COVID. Yeah, the implementation of zero COVID policies are fucking not great. They're awful. They're not good at all. Okay? Especially the uncertainty of when shutdowns will end makes it so much worse. Okay? That's it. I get the impression it's Western media blowing it way out of proportion, but many people were still upset for very long. I think that it's Lamau, you thought they handled it well and they fucking welded doors shut on apartment buildings. Look, we've fucking addressed that like a million times over. Yes, China in the beginning addressed COVID very well. 100%. The apartment's doors being welded shut were literally fucking exit shit, numerous exits, okay? That they closed down specifically so they could filter people in through one area where they could fucking take a look at where they could control the people moving around. You are literally using 2020 propaganda that reactionary sickos were saying was happening in China. They didn't weld every fucking door and kill a bunch of people. Remember when motherfuckers were saying China is actually ordering a bunch of urns because they're just, killing millions of Chinese people and then fucking burning them and crazy amounts of insane shit. Yeah, it's a fire safety hazard. I do agree with that. But, it seemed like they had bigger issues. Like, if you think that the Chinese, Chinese government's way of dealing with COVID in comparison to the American government's way of dealing with COVID was not apt, they even beat America on capitalist standards, okay? Like, manufacturing halted for a brief moment, but they were able to fucking literally open up way before the United States was able to. And also on top of that, they were able to just straight up fucking... No pen, please. What? Oh, oh God, they're talking about soccer still. Ay, 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 ay. Also, they don't have the mRNA vaccine. They never got the mRNA vaccine. They have Sinovac, which I don't know why the fuck they haven't like stolen the IP. I literally don't understand how the fuck they don't have it. Moderna has refused to hand over China the core intellectual property behind the development of its COVID-19 vaccine, leading to a collapse in negotiations on its sale there, the Financial Times reported on Saturday, citing people familiar with the matter. This literally is a fucking, okay, USA won. We got it. We're talking about something else. Okay, congratulations to the United States of America for winning against Iran. The Cambridge, Massachusetts-based pharmaceutical company turned down China's request to hand over its recipe for its mRNA vaccine because of commercial and safety concerns, the newspaper said, citing people involved in negotiations that took place between 2020 and 2021, adding that the vaccine maker is still eager to sell the product to China. The company had given up on its previous efforts to access the Chinese market because of China's demands that it hand over the technology as a prerequisite for selling to the country. Moderna did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for comment. China has not approved any foreign COVID-19 vaccines and relies on several domestically developed shots, Sinovac. In September, Moderna Chief Medical Officer Paul Burton said that the company was keen to collaborate with China on supplying its mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccine to the country. They want to sell it, but they don't want to give the IP so that China can make its own fucking version, partially because mRNA vaccine technology is going to be the next wave, okay? Which it already is becoming the next wave. mRNA technology with respect to like dealing with COVID might not be like incredibly fucking goated, okay? mRNA technology might not fucking cure COVID or whatever the fuck, but ultimately it is a medical wonder that could eventually lead to promising results in curing HIV, like becoming a vaccine for AIDS, okay? So part of the reason... Bro, people are still talking about USA. I want to end the stream, dude. Why do I do this? We got fucking like 5K people coming in immediately after the game ended. Okay, man, I know. I got it, okay? America won. Congratulations. I know. We know. Here, I'll change my title. Not that anybody looks at it. I think it's completely unethical and completely insane that any of these vaccines are, being paywalled or their intellectual properties being safeguarded. Now you remember how it is outside the U.S. football session is mad lol. I know, I hate it. It's like triggering my PTSD. BioNTech was initially researching mRNA for cancer treatment. Yes. They've been trying to have an excuse for mass test mRNA tech for years. COVID gave it to them. They don't want to give it away to China before making back money for R&D. Okay, we'll do the railroad strike in a minute. I want to see the Chinese protest.
Beijing. And Selena, you have been covering this now for a long time. You have seen this build up. You're there in Beijing in person. How are authorities responding tonight?
Well, when I went to those protests in Beijing, those people there, they were determined to make their voices heard. But at the same time, as you showed there, China's giant censorship machine is in overdrive, determined to make it as if those protests never happened, erasing videos, comments of the protests across the country on all Chinese social media platforms. State media, meanwhile, completely ignoring it all and publishing headlines reiterating that zero COVID is scientific and effective. But the protesters in China know that this is the system they're up against.
They chant, Xi Jinping, step down. An extraordinary show of defiance in China. In Shanghai, they chant for freedom, democracy, an end to COVID lockdowns. Even targeting the Communist Party and the Supreme Leader himself. Unprecedented protests are erupting across.
Is this event a black mark on socialism? What? Why? Bro, like, first of all, this has nothing to do with socialism. This is a government that is, I think, using as strict protocols for a policy that is COVID, like as a COVID zero policy. Like, this happened in Canada. This happened in America. This happened in every fucking country. What the fuck does this have to do with socialism? Is America socialist, bro? I mean, is China even socialist? Is it actually transitional? Okay? That's an entirely different argument for a totally different day. Okay? But these kinds of protests happened literally everywhere. Everywhere. CNN's take on it when it was in America or in Australia or in Canada was dramatically different. Like, this is happening for the first time in fucking China. And I think it's valid for... That's definitely not what they're chanting, by the way, especially since they never mentioned Xi. Okay, it doesn't matter. I think that these protests are valid, for the record. I do. I think that, like, I don't know if it's like regional governments not handling the shutdowns with adequate care. I don't know if it's like Xi Jinping's personal interest in like maintaining a COVID zero policy as a part of his legacy. I don't know if it's like their genuine fear of like long COVID having generational impact 10 years down the line. Okay. Or maybe a combination of all of these factors that I just mentioned. But ultimately, okay, I think it's a valid thing to protest. Okay. It's a valid thing to fucking protest with respect to how crazy the fucking lockdowns have been, especially in this day and age. Okay. There are like several hundred man protests in cities with populations of millions. The protests are already fizzling out after several days, and several local governments have already announced changes in lockdown measures. Yes. It's a valid protest considering that the shutdowns are some of the most strict shutdowns, if not the most strict shutdowns in the entire planet, I would say. And of course, China is dealing with these protests in the exact same way that America deals with protests when like black people are protesting. You know what I mean? By fucking beating the shit out of the protesters. It's just government shit. Of course, they make it seem as though it is like unique to America's foreign enemies when we cover it. It's still unacceptable when China does it. Make no mistake. But I do remember a lot of you motherfuckers being like, hey, wish they would crack some skulls in Canada against the fucking brave truckers, you know?
China, from major metropolises to elite college campuses, even far-flung cities. Searing nationwide anger triggered by a deadly fire in China's far west Xinjiang region. Water unable to actually reach the fire blazing from the high floor of the apartment building. Videos indicate COVID restrictions prevented fire trucks from getting close enough, apparently blocked by fences and metal barriers normally used during lockdowns. In the building's chat group, a mother pleads, "Help us, my kids are dying. We don't have enough oxygen." At least 10.
Every time something like this shit happens, there's like some fucking psychotic, what do you call it? Some psychotic fucking like regional leader or whatever that's like, no, we got to do this. Okay. And then that dude gets executed. Okay. But of course, that doesn't make it to the fucking news. That never makes it to the fucking news. And they're literally like, they just leave it off like this, as though this is like the normal work of like China's COVID policy. Okay.
People died. The nation grieving the deaths of victims that likely spent the last months of their lives trapped in that building. Most of Xinjiang has been locked down for more than 100 days. The protests even spilling into the capital.
They're chanting that they don't want COVID tests, they want freedom. And many people are also holding white papers in their hands, which is a sign of solidarity against censorship.
They sing and cheer, shout to be unsealed, and some even break down into tears. A man with a loudspeaker shouts, "We always support the Communist Party, but we want democracy and freedom." I asked a protester.
As is always the case, the worst of the worst with respect to like restrictions, shutdowns, or even like treatment overall from state authorities and state enforcement is going to happen in places like Xinjiang, where the Chinese government is notorious at handling the people there in the worst way possible. So just, remember that. But the only reason why I'm mentioning this is because if you literally think that this is going to lead to like some kind of fucking erosion of trust in the government, or that this is going to destroy the Chinese government or whatever, you're mistaken. Like many protests that have taken various forms in China in the past 20 years, those unfolding now, one should erode the idea that young Chinese who tend to drive these movements have largely been pacified by the CCP or made blindly supportive of it, should not get people's hopes up that it will ultimately yield any real political change, much less threaten CCP's hold on power. Yet again, getting deja vu from 2008 melamine scandal, Wenzhou train crash, Wuhan protest, Beijing floods, Southern weekend protests, Tianjin explosions, Under the Dome, initial COVID outbreak, events that made a sea change look almost inevitable, then quickly petered out. Also getting deja vu from all that there hasn't been anything like this since 1989 talk. Here are some articles. In 2020, coronavirus, a big shock to the legitimacy of the ruling party. I think it's only second to the June 4th incident of 1989. It's that big, said Rong Jian, a writer about politics in Beijing, referring to the armed crackdown on Tiananmen Square protests that year. The demonstration on the streets of Hong Kong present China with its biggest political challenge since the pro-democracy movement was crushed in and around Tiananmen Square in 1989. The parallels between demonstrations in Hong Kong and now, and those in Beijing 25 years ago are eerie. The striking journalists have been supported by crowds of demonstrators by some of the most prominent actors using social media to broadcast the message to many millions of online followers. China is doing one thing very well, okay? You want to know what it is? It's materially improving the lives of literally as many people as they physically can. Are they fucking brutal? Absolutely. Are they oppressive? Absolutely. Do they control information flow? Absolutely. But you know what they're doing that is causing people to not fucking, topple the government? It's not the brutal, oppressive structure of the Chinese government that is stopping people from literally taking up arms. You have a country that is famous for its peasant rebellions, okay? These motherfuckers will use rocks and sticks and stones to fight back if they have to. The main reason is because they like the high-speed rail. They see the Chinese prosperity, okay, which is the way to, have a more patriotic approach to socializing certain sectors or forcing rich people to hand over their profits and shit like that. Chinese people understand that the government is fucking ruthless and oppressive, but as long as they keep their fucking head down, okay, they are making China prosper together. They have a social cohesion that is also justified by the genuine improvements that they've seen over the course of the past 20 years. They are in their fucking 80s and 90s era right now, where you have like a robust middle class, okay? You have a robust middle class. You have growth in every fucking sector. Sure, there are holdups, okay? Sure, there are hangups with respect to, the real estate market in China and shit like that. But ultimately, people see all of that. People recognize all of that. People experience it. And that causes them to go, yeah, this is really fucked up. It is fucked up. Okay? But that's the reason why American media always gets whipped up into a fucking frenzy to say, look how bad China is. This is truly going to fucking be game changer. And it's never the game changer that they think it is. It fizzles out after 2 fucking days. It's crazy. It's something that you guys here understand, okay? You guys here understand that reality. Yeah, they got fucking sticks out, okay? They got sticks out. But guess what? They got a lot of carrot too, okay? They got a fuckload of carrot. A lot of people don't like the uncertainty and the handling of the COVID lockdowns and stuff like that, for sure, okay? People get very upset because they don't like not knowing when they can go back outside, okay? That's a terrible situation to be in. It's the uncertainty from everyone I've talked to, from everything I've read on the matter. The uncertainty of the issue makes it worse, okay? Significantly worse. That is where a lot of people don't like it. That is where a lot of people don't like the impact of the fucking shutdowns. But also simultaneously, they look to the rest of the world, okay? They look to the fucking rest of the world and they see millions of dead people from COVID and they think, yeah, we kind of did a good job overall. It's the collective understanding of the reality that like China is doing not as bad as the rest of the world. And it's another instance where you're just like, yeah, you're supposed to put your head down and, and keep on trucking. I agree with people. Listen to CCB. They said 2023, they will assess the issues of the Shanghai lockdown. Yeah, that was a big one. The Shanghai lockdown was a big one, okay? That is what pissed off a lot of people. The uncertainty of it all was what was very frustrating, okay? There's still motherfuckers who say, we don't know how many died in China. Oh, my Lord. Dude, gorillions, okay? 1 billion people died in China. China is now run by 10 people, okay? They all died, actually. Everyone's dead in China. That's American copium. That's nuclear grade copium. Imagine defending China doing this bullshit. I'm not defending it at all. I'm telling you very clearly that China's COVID-0 policy, while good before the vaccines were out, has led to, especially with uncertainty, that they still maintain a COVID-0 policy after the invention of fucking vaccines, which unfortunately they do not have. The mRNA vaccines they do not have. That's better than Sinovac from what I understand. But also on top of that, the uncertainty of like having urban areas shut down for God knows how many fucking days, 36 days at a time sometimes. Okay, that shit is frustrating for people. No, they do have vaccines. They have Sinovac, but they do not have mRNA vaccines, unfortunately. And they've been trying to get it, but Moderna, for example, has refused, as I showed you, has refused to offer the vaccine IP, and they just want to sell it to China. They don't want China to have the IP. That's not okay. Anyway, that's not to say the unfolding events are insignificant. They're clearly a very big deal, but in the moment, we often get overexcited and underestimate the party's ability to handle these things and make them virtually forgotten, at least publicly, within a very short time. That would never go away. Okay? This shit would never go away if it wasn't all the other things that the Chinese government does that instills a sense of confidence in the government having your back. You might disagree with the Chinese people on this, but there's a collective understanding that, like, you know, there's a sense of national pride and a collective understanding that the government is doing all right by them, even when they're being fucking insanely oppressive in other instances. So there's this interest not to push in certain areas, knowing full well that the government will fucking clamp down on it, while simultaneously they recognize that overall there is a sense of Chinese prosperity. Okay? So, but I also won't be surprised if this massive rebuke of authority is also forgotten in the next few months when the next round of simplistic young Chinese have become so pacified by the CCP and brainwashed by patriotic education and censorship articles come out. Maybe this will have an effect on zero COVID policy, which would be big. But often the lasting change that comes from instances of mass protests is the CCP learns from them, gets more paranoid, and the stability maintenance apparatus gets even more sophisticated and draconian. I think there's truth to that as well. This is a little bit more anti-China than my approach, I think. But there is truth to that. They do get more sophisticated, for sure, in tracking dissidents and shit like that. But also simultaneously, you can't track every person. There is not enough tools in the tool belt to fucking control billions of people, okay? So you got to do something that China has done very well, which is offer them things that make them feel like they're doing all right. More deja vu from past events, insisted that this time is fundamentally different, but this hurts people's kids. This is public transport everywhere. This is public transport everyone uses. This is air everyone breathes. This is calling for free speech. This is a deadly outbreak that affects everyone. Maybe this time is fundamentally different. To reiterate, what's happening is a big fucking deal. Never say never when it comes to mass movements in Chinese politics, but I long ago learned to temper expectations when the initial feeling is, wow, what an unprecedented rebuke of authority. Can't help but remember most vividly in 2013 Southern Weekend movement, when it seemed like the cat was out of the bag, a free speech movement that has started back could never be stuffed back. Instead, we got Document 9, an incredible wave of repression, basically the end of an era. Okay? When it's quiet in China, there's hankering that the CCP has co-opted the people with economic growth, propaganda, nationalism, and censorship. Okay, he's saying the same things I'm saying, but in a negative way. Look. Co-opted the people with economic growth is a psychotic approach, dude. This is literally when people were saying, like, China's actually pacifying the people by building high-speed rail and, like, heavily urbanizing their country. Then when people do speak out en masse, it flips and many people get giddy at the idea that China is ripe for revolution. Both ideas are overwrought. No, it doesn't matter. I'm saying, like, this is something that you see in Western reporting on China. They're co-opting the people with economic growth. How about we fucking co-opt the people with some economic growth, man? How about that? It's literally the same energy as, like, wow, Joe Biden is bribing people by, you know, offering them up to $20,000 in fucking student loan debt relief. No, dog, that's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what the government does. Economic growth isn't an a priori good thing, is it? It has to be spread around evenly to be a good thing. Yeah, well, when they say the people are being co-opted with economic growth, they mean like it's spreading to the masses. Trust me, if China was exclusively fucking focusing on growth sectors and like beefing up their fucking billionaires and they're wealthy instead of like spending gorillion fucking dollars in insane infrastructure projects, you wouldn't be fucking hearing these people criticize it. Okay? Oh, wait, isn't that what the U.S. does, though? No, the U.S. does the other thing. That's a really good take. If that were completely true, I don't think they'd be banning people for gaming for too long in regards to just trying to pacify other people. Yeah, literally. Every facet of fucking... Okay. Chinese social media applications for young kids is dramatically different than the way that we allow the gung-ho, do whatever the fuck you want. Here, take the iPad and let it run. generation of children that we have in America, where they're like, their shit is monitored, and like the kinds of content that is like being served to children is like educational in nature. You know what I mean? Instilling a sense of like Chinese patriotism, certainly. Okay, but also on top of that, like that means something. That says something. That means that they're not trying to fucking pacify their entire. They're not trying to pacify their entire nation. If they wanted to do that, they would just go gung ho like America does. We're very good at pacifying the nation with a relentless sea of nonsensical information that you just watch and you just dull yourself over and over again. The U.S. does all the repression of state violence and surveillance, but without any of the economic growth and prosperity. Thank you. That's my point, which is why I always say, listen, if this shitty fucking hand that American people are dealt, where they have to deal with like fucking not having working water in certain neighborhoods, not having fucking water pipes that aren't corrosive or full of lead in certain neighborhoods, like poor neighborhoods, or having to live on the fucking streets because they've been priced out of the housing market, like. All of that sort of shit should be eliminated if the American government is going to fucking keep cracking on people's skulls every time there's a protest. Sure, but who's to say that people think the same? America loves to say we're highly patriotic, but most of us despise how the government is ran. How you can speak so heavily on how the Chinese people think? How do you know the generation population think that they're prosperous? Not hating, just a genuine question. Well, I mean, my main fucking point of concern here is that they're not fucking killing their state government enforcers. You know? You're just curious, and I will answer your question. Speaking of China, what's your take on the Western media is calling draconian COVID measures? I think the Chinese, U.S. economic growth this year is outperforming China, but that doesn't help your argument. Wait, what? You're saying that? You mean U.S. economic growth this year that's outperforming China? I mean, first and foremost, I literally told you that like the Chinese COVID lockdowns, Libstini, originally were good. Okay. I'm not talking about right now. I do think that China's COVID zero policies are bad. I already told you. Also, this is a sad and silly and pathetic dub if you think that this is like a big dub for you. Apologizing for the Chinese government. Come on, bro. Come on. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. No. Anyway. Why are you pro-COVID? This is your worst take? I know. I'm pro-COVID. I want everyone in China to get COVID. No, man. Look at my prior post. I didn't criticize China on COVID. I know. That's why I'm saying, like, you're a fucking idiot for bringing that up. You literally admit, I'm going to take a seat on this one. After our COVID death toll, January 6th, multiple state capitals surrounded. Even a Western simp like me doesn't think like this is going to change anything, although these COVID lockdowns are having a material effect in the cities. And that is a factor, not just enough to lead to a bigger movement. Yes, because guess what China's going to do? Okay? They're going to recognize that they can't continue to fucking have endless lockdowns and lower the restrictions. And this is something that I also stated. Okay, 2023 is when they will most likely ease the lockdown restrictions in China. So the officials who fuck up lockdowns are punished by the CCP. That's absolutely not true. Both the secretaries who oversaw and managed the lockdown in Shanghai and Beijing, which were absolutely terrible, were promoted to the Politburo a few weeks ago. People are really mad about that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the specific instance in Xinjiang where there was a fire that happened. They do actually punish people that that will mishandle certain things, which never gets any coverage whatsoever. China eases COVID in some areas after protests. What is this? China eased some COVID-19 restrictions on Monday after a long weekend of protests against the country's zero-COVID policy, which morphed into one of the largest opposition movements in the ruling Chinese Communist Party in decades. In Beijing, city government officials announced that they would no longer block access to apartments that where infected residents live. That policy sparked protests after a deadly fire broke out in northwest China's Xinjiang region last week and killed 10 people. Fire engines were reportedly blocked from getting to the apartment fire because of pandemic barriers. In the city of Urumqi, where the fire broke out, authorities said public bus services would resume and some businesses and markets would open. In the port city of Guangzhou, officials said they would no longer require citizens to undergo mass testing, which they claimed was because of a lack of resources. China's zero-COVID strategy has kept infections from spiraling out of control, but has led to a wave of resentment against restrictions, which can keep some residents in lockdown for months at a time. Literally everything I just said, which is... Yeah, Chinese officials punished over COVID-19 outbreak that led to the Xi'an lockdown. Officials in the northwestern Chinese city of Xi'an are facing punishment after a COVID-19 outbreak that led to the lockdowns of 13 million residents, authorities said on Friday. All domestic flights out of Xi'an are am I saying that right? Most trains originating from the city scheduled for Friday were canceled. But yeah, the protests, which spread to at least 8 cities, were the first to directly challenge the rule of the President Xi Jinping in decades. The West doesn't report when authorities are punished for mistakes. Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. The healthcare system in China is also highly underdeveloped, even when compared to other East Asian countries, and that's just a function of lack of funding. They have a pretty low doctor population ratio and hospital and ICU population ratio. This is one of the areas where they failed in infrastructure. Plus, they also have a huge anti-vax population and the elderly population for some reason. Oh, this is true. Yes, Schadenfreude, which is Indian and also hates China, unrelated, but is you know, our Indian correspondent in the chat is unrelated, is correct on that. China's healthcare infrastructure is actually probably their weakest spot. They're also not great at dealing with like homeless people or allowing free travel to poor people from place to place. Let's be real. There's a lot of issues. This is a very, very poor country that is no longer very, very poor and became not very, very poor over the course of a very short period of time. Okay? You want Chinese people to have democracy, or that's not socialism? What? Bro, my man, I don't think we have democracy. I'm just going to keep it real with you, okay? The notion of like Western liberal capitalism, Western liberal capitalist democracy is just a theoretical one, okay? I think the quicker you recognize that, the easier things will get for you. Like, I want democracy. I'm a fan of that. I like that. But it's kind of funny to say, like, do you want Chinese people to have democracy in a country where, like, you literally just saw 75% of the country is like, yeah, don't touch abortion. It's fine. And then, like, Supreme Court was like, nah, actually, fuck that. In red states, you can just, completely criminalize women trying to get abortion, a medical procedure. And then you're still like, yeah, we got democracy. What happened? Oh, well, the red wave didn't happen. Oh, sick, man. That seems really democratic. I'm so glad that, like, Republicans now have, like, a one-person majority on the fucking Chad Thunderdog. If this talk is why leftists don't vote, then yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna stop leftists from voting because I said that in America, even the theoretical democratic process is just a theory and doesn't work. Yeah, now everyone voting rate drops to 0. What's gross to me is the way American media spoke on the BLM protests and now the China protests. Both were fighting against the government and institutional oppression, but it get twisted. So one is great and one is awful. Fuck mainstream media. They they talked about Black Lives Matter for a very long time in negative ways until Donald Trump, was against it. And then they changed their attitude.
Tester how he was feeling. Overwhelmed, he said.
I got to pee. I'll be back in a second. Here, watch some propaganda.
All conscientious Chinese people should come here and stand together. I said, you realize there's a risk being here. Of course there is, he responded.
And if we just turn the camera around, you'll see there is a row of police.
Hours later, masses of police filed in, pushing the protesters back. Demonstrators shout towards the authorities, "We are not your enemy. We are in this together." These are unbelievable scenes in China, where public criticism of the party can lead to prison time or even worse. In Shanghai, police arrested roughed-up protesters, violently dragging them into cars. No protests of this scale demanding political reforms have been seen since the Tiananmen pro-democracy protests in 1989 that led to a massacre of unarmed protesters. These demonstrators know what they're risking, but they're determined to make their voices heard.
And Aaron, there is now a heavy security presence in places where there have been protests, including here in Beijing. Last night, I went back to that exact place where I was the day before there at the protest, and we filmed video. When we drove by, you can see that it's eerily quiet with a giant row of police vans parked with their lights flashing. This is a stark reminder that this is a police state with far-reaching security, surveillance capabilities. It's also a country where social media like Facebook and Twitter are banned. The main messaging platform is monitored by authorities. It's not easy for protesters to communicate, mobilize, and continue to have their voices heard in China. But while the authorities, they can snuff out evidence within China of what's happened here, that anger, well, it's not going away.
Incredible. All right. Thank you so much, Selena Wang, as you can see, in Beijing and was at the protest there this weekend. It is stunning, Selena, showing that image of the day after, just with all those lights on and completely blocking off. I want to go now to Yanjun Huang, who's a senior fellow for global health at the Council on Foreign Relations and author of Toxic Politics, China's Environmental Health Crisis and its Challenge to the Chinese State, along with Ian Bremmer, the president and founder of the Eurasia Group and the author of The Power of Crisis. So, Ian, it is really amazing seeing Selena there on the streets, right, amidst protests.
New chat just dropped on Chinese TikTok. Oh, yeah. This is not a new chat. This is an old chat. The fuck do you mean? This is not even a new chat. Why is there no political commentators to cover politics outside the U.S.? Is it a hard job? Well, I think a lot of people don't want to. First of all, people do cover it, but not a lot of people cover it with my kind of perspective because, I mean, literally look at the chat for the past hour and you will understand why. People want to make themselves feel more comfortable about their particular circumstances, their set of circumstances. So like one of the easiest ways you can do that is by saying, oh, Hasan just hates America and loves China. Like when I'm talking about nuanced subject matter, they will say Hasan actually has an unnuanced approach to it. And he loves China and hates America. And that's it. That makes me feel a lot better about my perspective. Probably Chinese monopolist Irish journalist tells the American people that China having police cars on the street during a protest, a police state. Meanwhile, America, which brutalizes black people in every Midwestern city, isn't. No, I think America is a police state, and China is as well. They just got different fucking, they got different seasonings. What a goat. What a fucking king. Bro is a Chinese spy? Yeah, totally. Dude, I wish. I do want to go to China so fucking bad, but I'm a little worried about some of my coverage over Xinjiang and the treatment of Uyghurs in Xinjiang is the reason why I'm a little worried about what could happen. I do want to go so fucking bad though. I want to go. Oh God, they don't know about you, bro. Trust. I don't think so. I don't think that they would. Don't do it. Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean don't do it? I fucking absolutely, dude. First of all, I want to go get on the high speed rail. I will do state propaganda, okay? I will literally do state propaganda for China, straight up. If it means I can get to ride the high speed rail, go to all these like fucking tier 1 cities and shit, see what the other side of the world lives like, I am down, okay? I'm literally down, dude. I will fucking say whatever you need me to say. They do know you. You have a TikTok, so it's GG. On your John Cena arc, dude, I'd make John Cena look like a fucking disloyal state dissident, okay? With the amount of dick riding I would do for the CCP, John Cena would literally look like Adrian Zenz, okay? With the amount of dick riding I would do. I would do David Beckham style agitprop 100%. Let's be real, you're not John Cena. The U.S. State Department isn't doing shit if you get into trouble. No, I'm an American citizen. I think that would be... being an American citizen is pretty fire in with respect to things like that, especially if you're not literally a fucking agent. Like if you're an agent and you get caught, then, it's going to be a little bit harder for America to like pull you out. But if you're just like a regular fucking tourist and the Chinese government arrests you, holy shit, no shot. That would be an international crisis. No shot. We're not talking about North Korea, brother. We're talking about China. What do you mean? America's like most important trade partner. Like, starting an international crisis would anyone caring about you? Yeah, no, I don't think that it would be a thing. But, I just don't want to risk it still. It's a wild thing that this guy is doing where he smokes a cigarette while also eating food. I don't understand that at all. Oh no, he's becoming American. He's basically racist. Wait, what? Smoking in between food is crazy. Smoking after food is the best. Okay. Oh, here. Smoking is banned indoors, but a lot of places don't enforce it.